but Western military analysts believe that the subs have long been abandoned. The Libyan army claims to have 50,000 soldiers, more than 2,200 battle tanks and 945 armoured personnel carriers. But military analysts believe that years of sanctions and overall neglect have rendered much of the army's equipment useless.
Like any autocratic country, Gaddafi has probably for years been exaggerating the size of his armed forces. On the other hand, I would also warn that his forces, the ones around him now, particularly the 32nd Brigade, led by his son Khamis, is probably the best equipped in the army. It's received Western equipment, contracts inked in recent years. It's received outside training. And so, despite the obsolescence of some weaponry, despite the poor servicing of some of his planes, he still retains the very best equipment as against the rebels.
So, the Libyan army may not have the strength that it claims, but there's still a significant force on the ground. Analysts say that Gaddafi has a loyalist brigade made up of 10,000 to 12,000 troops, and those forces are trying to block the advance of the opposition and maintain control in western Libya. The heavy presence of loyalist forces means that Gaddafi still retains a strong grip on the capital, Tripoli, the town of Sabha, and his hometown of Sirte. It's thought that Libya destroyed its entire stockpile of chemical weapons in 2004 as part of a rapprochement with the West. It does have deadly mustard gas stored at a secret desert location, but no longer has the capability to deliver it. Small comfort for the rebels as they battle for victory. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera.
Officials in New Zealand are abandoning the search for survivors following last Tuesday's earthquake. The head of the Civil Defence Department says he doesn't expect to find any more people alive. The final death toll may be as high as 240, making this one of the country's worst ever disasters. Bradley Manning, the soldier accused of leaking thousands of classified U.S. government documents, is facing even more charges. The Army has filed an additional 22 counts against him, including aiding the enemy. Manning has already been accused of 12 other charges in connection with the material, which was published on the WikiLeaks website. My colleague Shihab Ratanzi has been speaking to Professor John Shelburne from the Roger Williams School of Law at Rhode Island in the United States. He asked him why the additional charges have been filed against Manning.
I think the additional charges are really just a reflection of the prosecutors now having had a better opportunity to review their case, and at this point they bring the additional charges merely to bring a little more pressure on the defense, to encourage them to either try to make a plea agreement or in some ways it better refines what the prosecution is trying to do when they go to the Article 32 hearing, whenever that actually gets held. I don't know about the strength of the earlier charges, but one of the, I think, positions that any prosecution takes is before they actually bring the charge to a hearing to review the strength of those charges, they have the ability and the leeway to revise and change those charges up until the point where they're formally charged. I think the biggest change with that new charge under Article 104 is the need to be able to show either direct or indirect aid to the enemy, and to me that seems to be the biggest hurdle any prosecutor will have to face, to be able to actually show that link.
At least 2 people have been killed in Yemen during clashes between security forces and protesters calling for reform. Thousands have also been demonstrating once again in the capital Sana'a and the northern city of Sada. Opposition parties have presented the president with a set of proposals they say form a roadmap to departure. President Saleh is said to be considering the plan. Microfinancier Mohammed Yunus says he will fight the decision to sack him as head of the Grameen Bank. He was fired by Bangladesh's central bank on Wednesday. It says he violated the country's retirement laws. Nobel laureate Yunus denies the accusation and says he's seeking legal advice. 2 U.S. servicemen have been shot dead as their military coach arrived at Germany's Frankfurt airport. German authorities have arrested a 21-year-old Kosovan. 2 other Air Force personnel were injured. Nick Spicer reports.
The attack took place inside a bus after a lone gunman got inside a vehicle carrying U.S. military personnel. He shot at several passengers just as it pulled into the terminal. 1 soldier and the bus driver were killed.
I would like to express how upset I am. The German government will do everything to find out what happened. I would like to express my condolences to the American soldiers and their families and relatives. It's a terrible tragedy.
Police have arrested a suspect. In a surprise appearance in the White House briefing room, the U.S. President Barack Obama was quick to respond, saying he's saddened and outraged by the attack.
We will spare no effort in learning how this outrageous act took place and in working with German authorities to ensure that all of the perpetrators are brought to justice.
The regional interior minister said the man being blamed for the attack was from Kosovo, but wouldn't specify if he was a soldier or what the motivation could be.
We're investigating all possibilities. Whether there is a terrorist background, a jihadist background or an Islamic background, I cannot say at all right now. Our investigations will reveal that, as well as what the perpetrators' motives were.
It's quiet now, but this is one of the busiest airports in the world. Thousands of people go through here every day, and many of them are American service personnel. That's because there are major American military bases nearby, providing medical and logistical support for the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. Nick Spicer, AlJazeera, Frankfurt.
Security in Côte d'Ivoire is deteriorating as fighting continues between President Laurent Gbagbo's forces and supporters of his rival Alassane Ouattara. Thousands of people have been trying to flee the violence. The UN says conditions are dire, with supplies of food, water, gas and petrol running low. International radio broadcasts are also being jammed. Imran Khan reports now on how some Ivorians have found refuge in a church in Abidjan.
Finally, a chance to smile and to sing for some. This is St. Ambroise Church, Abidjan. But instead of spiritual healing, it's medical healing in this makeshift refugee camp. Thousands have fled the fighting between supporters of the man the West recognises as Côte d'Ivoire's leader, Alassane Ouattara, and Laurent Gbagbo, who is clinging to power despite international condemnation. They arrive here dishevelled, tired and in desperate need of care.
We have two types of people, those who only stay for a day and those that stay longer. We try and help them move to safer places.
And with homelessness comes the threat of disease. The International Red Cross fears that the longer this goes on, the higher the chance of disease spreading.
The most urgent needs that we are talking about are linked to health. The need for medicines is also linked to hygiene, which is also linked to the need for shelter.
Most of the fighting, which some fear could spread to civil war, has been in the Ouattara stronghold of Ababo. The sound of constant gunfire and fighting is now a distant memory for the ones that have made it here. For these men and women of God, helping the few that they can is all they can do.
We tell them they can always use this area for their children. We can't abandon them. That's why we come here, so we can protect them and their children.
The refugees here escaped with only what they could carry, and they've got no idea when they can go back or what they will go back to. Imran Khan, AlJazeera.
Zimbabwe's president has lashed out against the West over sanctions imposed on him. Addressing party members, Robert Mugabe threatened to take over foreign firms in retaliation. He also called for a boycott of overseas goods. The European Union and the United States had earlier imposed a travel ban on Mugabe and his supporters over human rights abuses.